I was fortunate and not fortunate. I decided to become an architect when I was 4.5. And that's because I had an unfortunate accident and I nearly died. At 4.5, well, I was good at making airplanes, and with the elastic band, and I used to try and make it fly from the living room into the kitchen, landed on the kitchen table. Well, one day, one of the planes landed on one of those old-fashioned stoves on the warmer at the back. So nobody was home, and my mother was just out for a few seconds, and I tried, got a three-legged stool and tried to get that plane. And with a three-legged stool, I went over and caught this stew that was going on. And fortunately, the oven door opened and my face was saved, but the rest of my body, it was almost like 50% burned. So I was left in bed for 8 months. And during that time, I used to look out the window, and there was an addition going on across the street. And saw these men come and dig ditches and then pour foundation and concrete and then put up concrete blocks. But every once in a while, man appeared with a blueprint, you see, and unrolled. And just like in the movies, he was smoking a pipe, and people would gather, and so I thought, well, somebody must think about, houses. And I thought, well, I don't want to be a person digging ditches or doing concrete block and other things, but I wanted to be that person who thinks about buildings. And much later, I found out that person was called an architect. And so the determination to become an architect came early for me because of an unfortunate accident. And then I guess I was about 8 when my father took me on an old-fashioned tram, a big streetcar, and this is in Vancouver, and to Westminster, and this was like a noisy magic carpet. Went from the terminal, up Main Street, and all these stores, and at the corner there was a library, and the street, and went through Chinatown, and houses, and open field, and I thought, somebody must think about cities too. So I wanted to be one of those, and that person was called, urban planner. So I decided, well, I'm going to be an architect and an urban planner. So my life was settled very early. And I guess in many ways it helped because when I was 12, when the World War II started, well, you may or you may not know, the Canadians of Japanese ancestry were treated as enemy aliens, and we were put into internment camp. And it was a very tough year. This was from 42 to the end of the war, and it lasted longer. The scar lasted much longer for the Japanese Canadian community because it was somewhat like you were raped, and you can't talk about it. So it was a total contradiction.
Yes.
And so to live through a contradiction was a very to put it mildly, interesting experience. And that's when I learned three things. That one, democracy is a very fragile thing.
Yes.
And that you fight for it, not only for yourself, but for everybody. And secondly, because, well, let's say, when the country turned its back on myself, I looked for a leaning post. The social sort of leaning post wasn't there anymore. So one is like Juno, sort of floating upside down and not knowing really what's up and down. And that's when I found out nature is a great solace, and that's when I started to learn a lot about nature. That it was absolutely neutral. That what man-centered view of nature is a distorted thing. That nature, in all its temporariness, is the most permanent thing, and that the man's sort of view is ever-changing, and it's fashionable, and that nature was absolutely a wonderful, beautiful thing. And third thing was that that I guess I learned, and even now as an architect, I find it influencing me, is that the insensitivity of an institution, and whether it's a government or a community, could really suppress, maybe in some cases kill the sort of the need for individual human beings to grow spiritually, and thereby create a loss to the community, even to the family, to the city, to the country, to the world. And so I thought, wow, you got to listen. And I thought, as a child, that if the government had listened to us, maybe we wouldn't be in a camp. And so the whole question of sensitivity was a big issue for me. So those are the three things I guess I learned in those years. I think of myself never as a Japanese architect, because I'm born here. When we were working on the Canadian embassy in Japan, I told the Japanese that I'm born in Canada, and I will very much react like a Canadian.
I see.
And that they'll find me strange. And I asked them to understand that. Well, the statement that I made to them would not be made by a white person. So I thought, well, maybe in a way I have that Japanese sort of a gene there.
Yes, right.
But the environment in which I grew up is Canada, and when I go to Japan, I know I'm not Japanese.
That's right.
Oh, I'm absolutely not a Japanese, in Japan.
Yes. Okay.
I may be a Japanese Canadian in Canada. It's interesting that you say that because one time we did a building totally out of steel and glass. And out of scrap metal that the owner had. We gathered all the scrap and built this steel building. And when I took one of the architectural critics to the place, he said, "Oh, it feels very Japanese."
Yes, that's right.
And so I said, "Well, is it because you're looking at me and reaching that sort of a conclusion in your head, or if I said to you, my name is Vincent and I'm a blonde, what do you think?" He said, "Well, it could be Swedish." Well, the first project that we, or I ever did on my own was a summer cottage.
That was after being an architect, like you already graduated, or that student?
This is my first project as a practicing
I
architect.
see. Okay.
And the budget was $8,000. That's including fees, the house, a dock, a bridge, and any landscaping. And the condition was that I have to live in it for at least 1 week. And that was a fascinating job. We lived in it for a week after it was finished, of course, and I learned a lot. There are things I learned never to do again, like kitchen arrangement. So that was the first job. And we met the budget. This is in Ontario. I really don't know. I don't like anybody. In fact, when I was at school, I guess it was third year, I gathered all the professors and I told them very crudely and pompously that I knew more about architecture than all of them put together, so I don't really have to go to school. With that, I never went to design classes.
I see.
I just handed in my work. I'm not that pompous now. Well, one of us take on the project and take the lead. Let's say I'm doing the project, and I'm the project architect.
Designer.
Yeah. Yes. Then Ted becomes a backup, and a conscience. He will be asking me questions. How come you're doing that? Or, do you think that's the correct architectural principle? Or so there's a clear role that we play. This way, we discuss principles. Never have to discuss personality. Harborfront?
Yeah.
Well, should be is a difficult thing to talk about. But it's unfortunate. Missed opportunity. And it's going to take a long time to correct. The access for the mass of people to water, we have not really worked in the Netherlands. We're acting as consultants right now. Ted is a consultant on the Science Museum, and we didn't spend too much time. We went on a world tour, and I feel badly about Egypt because it was passing through. I was really only interested in the pyramids.
Yeah.
And so we didn't spend that much time. It's one of the places that my wife and I have as a place to
Well, I
go
hope so.
and spend much more time. So it's a kind of an embarrassment to be, to be talking about. Oh, I went to visit that building when it was first finished, and I found it interesting. Except again, I felt it didn't suit my personality. What bothered me was not the style, but the lack of contextual relationship
to the neighboring.
Yeah, and this is and I'm talking about that particular building, and I thought, well, even with kind of a postmodernistic style, there should be some recognition of what's around it. It sits there like like a pompous, pretentious, egocentric, monument to the architect, and I really didn't feel very, sympathetic.
Yeah. Okay.
And I guess because like I tend to sort of practice phenomenology, I found that way of doing things was contrary to my belief, and so postmodernist it's not going to. I feel it's not going to last very long.
I see.
And when the talented architects do their work, like Graves and others, it comes out well. But what really bothers me are the architects who have no talent,
Imitations, yeah.
doing it and passing it off as
Style.
as a postmodernist, and really the public is really getting shortchanged, and not only shortchanged, but getting crap. I really get excited. Like I went to the Russian show at the MoMA. I found it really exciting. But maybe it's kind of to do it now is to go back in time. That there is more to the future than going back. Our son worked for a group who has an office in L.A. He worked for both Frank Gehry and I feel terrible. Hemoglobin. And so I'm somewhat familiar. And found their work really interesting because it was beyond the simple sort of work that a lot of architects are doing and passing off. Well, I guess it wasn't really a first major project. We did the Ontario Science Center before that.
Okay.
And Scarborough really interested me, and at the time, I went to the interview and really never talked about architecture, and I was having gone through that war, World War II, and I didn't talk about World War II, but I was very much interested in sort of talking about the virtues of democracy at the municipal level and how does one express it. And so that's what we tried to do. The interesting thing was that, like if I had been then, it was really taking a great chance
Yes. Yeah.
You know, some young guy talking about, you know, Canadian democracy at municipal level and, you know, give them a job, you know.
Yes.
So they took a chance. Well, first of all, it was the first building to have a so-called atrium.
Yes.
We never called it atrium. The word was never used. We called it a central public space, and a place for the public gathering. Because of our inclement weather and cold in the wintertime, the outside, you know, space is not going to function properly. So we created that space. And in order to do that, we had to bring in a fire consultant from Chicago. That's when Jensen first came to Canada. And, you know, now he set up an office and so on. But when we finished it, you know, developers and other architects asked us, you know, how we did it. You know, nobody asked why we did it. And I thought it was really interesting that nobody would ask, you know, why we did it, but you know, how we did it and how much it cost. Well, you know, the people, like developers, didn't believe how cheap it was.
Yes.
And so momentum picked up on the idea. We basically find that I think the intentions are good. It's too slow. So I don't know about the American embassy being better. Well, I guess maybe they are. You know, when we were bidding on a museum in Hong Kong, the American government was willing to give the Hong Kong Chinese an airplane. You know, like, well, the Canadian government was, you know, we found that difficult to even get airfare.
I see.
And well, they were willing to, but you know, by the time we go through the paperwork, the job would have been gone. So I think they're well-meaning. Maybe the point is maybe a bit slow. That you know, the world has to move faster. The other thing, and you know, we made deputation to Ottawa, is that, you know, the Canadian and the solitude, you know, like we're not able to make networking sort of possible. For example, you know, even in the Architectural Association, the Western Association tried to keep Eastern architects out of the province from work.
Yes.
And this is really silly because, you know, road is, you know, like much too small than the Canadians see it.
That's
And in order to compete and give proper service, the government should be encouraging Canadians to be able to make networking possible within the country so that you could go and compete outside. This is more of a problem than, you know, helping, you know, hope. I don't think those are issues at all. Time has changed. Time has moved. Technology has changed. And earlier I said that we practice phenomenology. What we try to do is share whatever we discover. So in our office we have a saying, empty your mind and become a professional dum-dum. Architects tend to be a bit pompous. and pretentious. And we don't know very much. So I'm saying to the people here, look, become a professional dum-dum, and then you could ask questions.
Yes.
And listen. So the other thing that we have is saying that, okay, practice 2 L's. The first L is listen hard. And the second L is so that you could become a leader in the design aspect.
Okay.
And we also say, there are 4 P's that will lead to appropriate answer. And the 4 P stands for the place, the people, the program, and the process. Now, because every place is different, the people you're dealing with are different, the program's different, and the process is going to be different, so things change.
That's right, yeah. Okay.
It's not that we're the ones that are thinking and everybody else is standing still. Everybody else is moving, and in many cases, maybe other people have developing ideas that we could sort of grab onto, and I guess there's a third L, look for opportunities, and grab onto those. So yes, if we were doing the science center today, it'll be totally different because time's different.
That's right.
Because originally when we were given the task, we were going to do air building, building without walls and roof, and to hold it up with air. But we didn't have time to develop the research on it. The second building we were going to do was it'll have a roof but no walls, and it'll be air curtain wall. But again, line up time.
Okay.
And energy consumption was too high. When you say that, you're talking about general architect. Well, first of all, I feel that the level of Canadian architecture is far higher than the architecture in most countries. I'm really sort of I tend to praise my fellow Canadian architects because first of all, we have an unforgiving climate, so we tend to put things together well.
Technically, yes.
Technically. And design-wise, I think our average is far higher than most any country. So I would put the art of architecture of Canadians above most, above most other countries. Maybe that's a pretentious statement, but I think it's true. So I'm really happy about the Canadian architecture. I'm optimistic. I tend to be optimistic right now. And when I see a lot of talented younger architects doing good work, that really gives me a sense of elation, I guess, a sense of celebration. What I feel is that it doesn't matter whether you're pushing this or pushing the pencil. It's up here in the head. It's the mind, the heart.
Of course,
And it's only as good as the person who's pushing the key. It's ugly, but it has character.
Ugly character.
And sometimes it really is like a ugly turtle.
It is. It's very sad.
But in a funny way, it's friendly. If it were more pristine, I think it would put up a lot of the Canadian. And this is where it's a very interesting situation. Canadians are more comfortable in, like a Macintosh. We're a wire hanger society, not wood hangers. And we're going through a phase. And I'm not saying that therefore the sky dome is a good solution.
That's what I'm saying, Mr. Moriyama.
It represents, the wire hanger society. The whole waterfront is a missed opportunity.
Yes, yeah.
I personally, it puts me off because it's like it to get a huge mass of rock to pretend it's a rock mass. Why don't they make it out of plastic?
Yes, well, that's.
There are certain parts of it that I like, but somehow, as a total complex, it's exactly what most people think of nature, that man could control it, and therefore, we're heading for disaster. It's not a understanding of nature, but again, manipulation, control, and we feel that we're above it all.
Yeah.
And as an overall philosophy, I detest it.
Yes.
And so, I can't see really, I can see little good things, but as an overall philosophy, it's not my philosophy. We struggle with it before we put it out, and I can't think of one project where we feel really badly about. I feel that we're part of nature, and that the buildings that we put up is not it's not the building that is surrounded by shrubberies and nice things. Where we're trying to put a building sort of as gently as possible. The whole idea of health, fit, and cooperation really is the driving force here. And health is defined as not just a healthy body, but it's all about social health, environmental health, and fit, and is so that we all fit together in a cohesive manner. And in order to do that, I think we have to cooperate, push and pull, and the pomposity of man is going to just destroy us. It was interesting because I was walking by myself up in the Himalayas, and I was walking beside Ahmedabad, and I said to myself, God, if I fell off this, hillside, nobody's going to know whether I died or not, and it doesn't matter. And I felt, it's interesting. I feel smaller than I am, but if the earth, like that, and we're really desecrating this place. And I felt, hey, it's a crazy thought, but if we got rid of Homo sapiens, the world as a living place is better off. Now, but then, at the same time, I'm saying, okay, I feel smarter than an ant, but I have this ability to conceive and think of this universe like if the earth were a size of a grain of sand and I'm on it. The universe that we know is a beach more than 15 miles long.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, if I could conceive that, the amount of sort of a mental intake and a conceptual sort of thought that we could create makes Homo sapiens worth living. So, the growth has to take place in a kind of an environment of health, fit, and cooperation. And if we're, just going to just consume and, pretend, to do things like Yorkville and say that's great, it's going to destroy us. Because it just ain't what it is. And maybe I feel this way because I lived up in the Rockies during the internment and listened to the sound of nature and lived through storms and lived through wonderful sunrise up in the Rockies and for the Himalayas. And I think not listening to the right voices. Maybe we're listening to the wrong drummer and marching into hell.
Yes.
And when marching to in the opposite direction is so much more wonderful.
Yes.
And this is where I really, sometimes can't understand, what the hell, men and women are saying, in Toronto and, on this earth. And so, maybe the lesson I learned, about nature, during the internment is both a kind of a great sort of philosophic benefit to me and its health, because I see all these people going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So I think, as somebody said the other day, you're marching to a different drum. The way I see architecture in Japan, there are a lot of good things and bad things, kind of, going on right now. And it's like, everything's going into a waste paper basket, and, it's fermenting, and soon it's going to explode. And I want to be there, when it explodes, because it'll be a fantastic sort of explosion. I think Eisenman doesn't understand what the Japanese mentality is. They're kidding him, they're tolerating him, and so they do it. And Eisenman thinks, oh God, these Japanese are great, and at the same time, the Japanese are saying, oh. We just let them do it, and we spread the propaganda. In the end, the Japanese are really solid. They're really solid.
Okay.
And they're not going to let things sort of sway them. See, the Canadian Embassy is not a work we did for the Canadian government. See, the Canadian government had this brilliant concept of building a $200 million Canadian embassy project at no cost to the Canadian taxpayer. You know, with the exception of some furniture and security equipment. So to materialize that concept, we work for the Japanese, not for the Japanese government, Japanese private sector. And we work with Shimizu, and Shimizu is a construction company, development company, and they have a staff of about 15,000 people. Out of 15,000 people, I think the way they describe the people, you know, there are actually architects and engineers, that number maybe nearly 10,000. And the architects, as we define them, number about 1,000. So it's a big organization, and they have research facilities. So they're not like Canadian developers or contractors. You know, they're much more solid. You know, they have earthquake testing equipment, wind testing equipment, and so I just elaborate that to make sure that you know, the differences between Canadian developers and because Canadian contractors are really like brokers. But in Japan they're not. And they're very professional. So I work with them. And during the near 8 years, the Canadian government officials changed a lot. But the Shimizu group was really solid. The core group did not change. Oh, you're talking about
Prince Charles.
Prince Charles?
Yes,
yeah.
book.
Well, I didn't read it. I scanned through it.
Okay.
And I met Charles.
Okay.
And I told him I thought he did wonderful sketches. And I did, you know, I think he's off.
But what? So, what do you think of his crusade? Let's say to go back to the old Victorian buildings, or
that, you know, I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because you know, time's changing.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. Yeah.
It's like saying, geez, you know, we got computers, but now let's get rid of the computers. Architects always have a dream, you know, they always fantasize. When I was in university, I said to myself, I would love to do 3 things. One is to design a city hall, which I've done, and I would love to do you know, a museum, and which I've done. And the third one was to do a cathedral.
church.
No, a cathedral. And the cathedral was really a symbol of pursuing truth. You know, what's truth in life? And at one point, I thought maybe I did that when we were involved in looking at this menacing swamp, 25,000 acres of swamp. And well, some of the architects' friends said, well, you know, what the hell are you doing working on the swamp? I'm saying, you know, the swamp is, you know, is really a source of life. If we're real architects, we should be preserving such a place. And, so the cathedral is a symbol of trying to pursue what I feel is truth. So it's a never-ending process. But well, we did a 100-year plan for Saskatchewan, in Saskatchewan, and I thought, well, maybe this is one of those cathedral. Well, it's going on. I think they're on the 15th year now, and they're on track. We did 100 years with Nightfalls on
Yes.
and
The Buffalo too, I think.
well, Buffalo is a transit job, and you know, that was interesting, but it's not what I would call a cathedral. You know. Although that job led to our involvement in TTC here, and I just thought people find it kind of a strange for our office to be involved in transit. 2 weeks ago, I was close to it at a meeting, and it looks ridiculous. It really looks ridiculous. I used to teach, and you know, I've been offered teaching jobs, but I find, you know, I mean, this sounds a bit vicious, but I find two things wrong with teaching. You know, it's the other faculty members and the students. Well, as long as it's not permanent.
Yes.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
You know, lecturing once in a while.